Okay, I think we are live.
I don't know what this is. I'm
This
not seeing.
is, um, to be honest, even I don't. But let's see what's going on.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. We're live here with Cindy. Hi,
Hi,
everybody.
everybody.
And I've just left a comment. Even I'm learning the ropes here. So, the conversation today, Cindy, is on forgiveness.
Yep.
And and just was curious. You said the topic resonates with you. Okay, we have somebody watching. That's myself. Oh, very interesting. Okay, so we're learning. We're learning.
Yes,
So
we are.
when I say forgiveness, what comes to your mind?
Forgiveness. Moving
Hmm.
forward, moving on.
Okay.
Um, Trying to get clarity about what was so upsetting. It depends. I look at it from either being forgiven by somebody or forgiving someone. So
Okay.
there's kind of two different perspectives of looking at it.
Okay. So tell me about both of these. When you say forgiving somebody, and then you also said being forgiven.
Being forgiven. Yeah. I think when you forgive somebody, it takes a lot of understanding, I think, because for my own experience, a lot of times my first reaction will be anger, because
Mm-hmm.
under that anger is usually a hurt. Somebody has hurt my feelings. They've, taken what I've said the wrong way, or anything like that. And so I think when you're trying to forgive someone, or when you're asking for forgiveness, is that what I'm talking
Okay.
about? Is asking, yeah, when you're asking
Yeah.
for forgiveness, um, you're asking someone to accept you as you are, to move on with what happened if you've wronged them. I think it takes a lot of courage, because first you have to acknowledge that you've done something wrong, or you've hurt somebody, or you caused somebody pain in some way. So I think in order to move on with that, you have to look at yourself first and see what's going on with you, why that happened, what you could have done differently. And then once you come to terms with the fact that, okay, I've done something that was unacceptable to me and to somebody else, what can I do differently? One thing I can do is apologize or ask for forgiveness. And so I've done
Hmm.
this before, and then I've gone to someone and said, I messed up. I'm really sorry, and I'm asking you to forgive me, or to move on.
Hmm.
It's hard sometimes to do
Hmm.
that. It's hard sometimes to do
Yeah,
that.
I was just coming to that. I think when it comes to forgiveness, the one thing that comes in my head is where when do you come to that point where you feel it's time to ask for forgiveness, or when do you come to that level of acceptance within yourself that you'd like to actually go up to the person and say I'm sorry, because sometimes you are just in that space where I did it because I felt it was right. Yeah. So
Yeah,
how and when do we come to that point?
I think it's a process. Like I said, I think I start out by being angry, that I had been
Hmm.
wronged or I'd done something wrong, and then I have to come to terms with it myself, acknowledge that I've done something. Okay,
Yeah.
and then and this isn't always easy. I go back and forth with feeling okay about it and then not feeling okay about it, and then at some point I come to acceptance of the fact that
Hmm.
I have to own this. This is mine. I have to own it. And then
Yeah.
it's like I said, I have to muster up the courage to say what I want to say to this person. And
Hmm.
sometimes I don't have the words right away. And that takes me some time too to come up with how I want to say it, what I actually am thinking and feeling about it. Um, and that takes time. I think the whole process takes time, from the
Yeah.
minute you have done something wrong to the time you actually forgive or ask for forgiveness.
Super. Yes. And I think I like how what you said about going back and forth, because we do tend to go back and forth in terms of understanding who's. I think the first thing that we need to understand in that process is whose mistake was it. or
Right.
even to have that willingness to say, okay, I did wrong, and not feeling little about it. Okay, so we have a question here from Gaurav who says, who's your guest tonight? Okay, actually, we just bang jumped right into it. So, for the people watching, hi everyone. I have with
Hi.
me Cindy Martin, and she is joining us from US. And Cindy, tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Oh, wow. I've known Rukia for about a little over 2 years now. I found her in a private group that we both belong to, and I just started following her and have watched her almost every day since then. I love what she has to say. Um,
Thank you.
I myself am a retired teacher. I taught for 32 years. I taught for the last 16 years in a middle school for special needs students, and I don't know. I like life. I live a pretty simple life these days, being retired, and I enjoy that very much. I have a lot of hobbies that I do, and I don't know. That's I like to talk.
So Cindy loves to talk. Cindy is most often on my lives, so anybody watching the replay would always see me saying what I have to say, and then going, "Hi, Cindy." So, so that's like a always there kind of a hello, because she always joins in. And what I appreciate about us together as me and her is that we're often in sync. It's
Yes.
like when I'm speaking, her comment comes in, and which I feel as, oh, how did she hear me say that? Or I'm
Yeah.
so it just feels so synchronized, and the wavelength matches. So when I decided to do this, I said, what better way to do this than to have her on board as the first guest speaker? And
Wow. I thank
massive
you for asking me.
thank you. And there is a massive, massive place of respect that I have for you, and which is why I said, yes, let's do this together. And
Hmm.
we have comments coming in. Hussein Bakshi, who is my uncle, says, to forgive is the highest, most beautiful form of love. In return, we will receive untold peace and happiness. Yes.
It is
Your thought?
definitely expression of it is definitely expression of love to forgive someone is an
Yep.
expression of love. I agree.
Agreed. And when I look at the other part of it, peace and happiness, that he says you will receive untold peace and happiness, absolutely. Because I think once you've, whether it is forgiving someone else or forgiving your own self, when you come to that place of letting it go, that's when you feel a sense of,
Hmm.
you know, weight lifted off your shoulders, off your heart, and you
Peace, a
feel
sense of
you come,
peace.
yeah, a sense of peace, and a place of, okay, now that I've moved this weight away, I can let something else into my space, abundance, maybe something else to look forward to. Because I feel, for when you don't forgive and when you're holding on to a grudge, you're filling your heart with some level of anger and guilt,
Hmm.
and that's not a nice place to be in.
No, and
Gaurav,
you let it, you let the hatred. I was going to say you let the
yes,
hatred
Gaurav.
and the anger get in the way of you moving forward in the relationship. You hold on to that anger and resentment until you're able to move on and let go, and that I think you have to get your ego out of the way in order to do that.
Hmm. Gaurav says forgiving is moving on, and you just said moving on. You said move on. So
Yes.
yes. Vermery says peace, faith, love, and hope. Forgive and forget. Ah, the other level to it. So when, okay, one thing is to forgive. What about forgetting? How important is that?
I don't always forget. I don't hang on to it anymore with an anger, but I don't always forget what the quarrel was about, or I can look back on different feelings than I did initially. But I sometimes don't forget it.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm. And I think when you don't forget something, it's not about the situation that we want you to forget, but I think it's also about, do you really want to forget the lesson from it? Because each experience is a lesson, right?
Right.
So what did you learn about that person? What did you learn about yourself? How were you behaving in that scenario? Would you like to behave in the same way moving forward? These are certain questions that you can ask yourself when you're looking at a space of forgiveness and forgetting. So you forget the flaw, but you keep
Right.
the lesson.
Right. Right. I think when
Gaurav
you're for
says forgiving
Go ahead.
yourself. Just a moment. Gaurav says forgiving yourself is a good starting point. Vimari says learn the lesson. Yes. Sorry to interrupt. Yes, you were saying.
Who, me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, I was just saying when you forgive someone, you're allowing the person and yourself to heal instead of
Hmm.
punishing them for what they've done to wrong you.
Right.
It's
True.
more of a healing process than it is a punishment that they did something to wrong you.
True. And I'd read somewhere that when you don't forgive someone, it's kind of similar to drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, where you're holding, whoops,
I've
you know,
heard that before. Yes, it's very funny and very true.
yep. And yeah, your thoughts.
Um, I think that is true. When you hold on to anger, or you're holding on to a resentment. Let's say someone has
Mm-hmm.
done you wrong. Um, it takes up space in your head. It
Mm-hmm.
it it makes you sit in anger and hatred, and you become negative about many things. You just see the
Mm.
world in a more negative light than when I think you have an open heart to forgiveness. I think you have to get your ego out of the way to
Mm.
be forgiving and really mean it. Not to forgive someone and say, "Oh yeah, okay, I forgive you," but to go on and hold resentment or to punish them in some way. I'm not going to talk to you for 3 days, something stupid. Um,
Yep.
when when you forgive and you get your ego out of the way and you're able to do that, I think you genuinely can allow the person to say they're sorry, or for you to say you're sorry to them, uh, and to let the process move forward.
Hmm. I noticed this is the second time you said move your ego out of the way.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I think our ego gets in the way in both situations, either when we're forgiving others or when we're being forgiven.
Hmm.
I think, and I've mentioned this before, you have to be right sized. You don't
Oh,
want your
yes.
ego so big that there's no room for forgiveness, that you think you're above that person, that they deserve what they're getting in punishment or whatever. Okay. And then you don't want to be so small that you just take whatever somebody dishes out like a mat and just say, oh, do whatever you want. I'm okay. So being right sized, I think, is that place where the ego moves over and says, I know the right thing to do. I know the right thing to do. And
Hmm.
when you get that information into yourself, and the ego can get out of the way, and you can say, okay, I'm responsible for this. What, let's say I've heard somebody, I'm responsible for this. Then you have to be humble enough to accept that responsibility so that you can then, ask for forgiveness.
Hmm. That's that's so true. And very often, I think what holds us back, and taking it back to what I said in the beginning about understanding when you come to that point of moving forward and saying I'm sorry. I think you come to that point where you put your ego aside, when you acknowledge that yes, this has happened. It happened because of something I did, and I'm ready to say sorry because the relationship is
Right.
bigger to me than anything else.
That's
So
right.
yes.
Right. If you're not invested in the relationship, then, you know, it doesn't really matter that much to you one way or the other if you're not invested. If you are invested, um, you don't want to give up the relationship. over something that could be very much a misunderstanding. Um, and you owe it to yourself and the other person in the relationship to find out what actually happened and to make the necessary apologies and move forward with that relationship.
Okay. I'm going to kind of shift your focus towards guilt and anger now, because what I realized is these are the two emotions I feel when I'm in a place where someone has wronged me, or when I have, I have wronged someone. The anger is when someone has wronged me, and there's guilt when I have wronged someone.
Yes.
So, looking at both of these emotions, and I wanted to understand from you what's how does it impact us when you're looking at anger and guilt?
Well, I think anger and guilt are both pretty limiting emotions. They can consume us and kind of overtake a lot of things in our life. So I try not to do guilt, and the way I don't do guilt is I listen to my inner voice, and when I know that I've done something wrong or that message comes to me, uh-oh, you need to
Uh-oh.
look at this. Uh-oh. You need to look
Yeah,
at
that
this.
uh-oh voice.
Yeah. Um, then I act on it. I try and act on it because I don't like the feeling of guilt. I really dislike the feeling of guilt very much. And so I try very hard to acknowledge when I've done something to someone else that's been harmful. It doesn't always come quickly, but it does come. Um, and it's usually when I'm sitting in enough guilt that it gets my attention
Mm,
that I don't want to be here. And what can I do differently?
yeah,
And that's usually an apology.
right. Sometimes we hold on to these emotions as labels, feeling that, okay, this is just me, or I've done this, so I'm a bad person.
Right.
How do you peel off that label
Hmm.
and make sure that there is no residue scarring of it, or there would be residue scar, some kind of stuff that might be left behind, but then how do you not wear it as if it was your identity? If, okay, you made a mistake, but that's not you made a mistake, and then how do you move on?
I think that comes a lot back to us forgiving ourselves, because I think when you don't forgive yourself, you're not only hard on yourself, but for that, you're not deserving. You've done something wrong. You're bad. All of those things you tell yourself. You do the same thing to other people, and so it's
Hmm.
very hard I think, to forgive somebody else when you are not a very forgiving of yourself.
Right.
Um, and then um, I think, what were we talking about? Fill me in here on the meaning of anger or guilt.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And well, with both of those, with anger too, my anger usually dissolves again when I get my ego out of the way and I try and get in touch with what I'm actually feeling. And like I said, usually that's some kind of a hurt. And so
Hmm.
then I have to look at that and acknowledge that person hurt me, and they did this or they did that. Um, and I sometimes stay angry for a little while, but then again, how do I switch that off, and how do I switch guilt off? I use mantras a lot.
Okay.
Mantras help me reframe the way I'm thinking about something. I
Hmm.
remember years ago I had a sponsor, and she helped me with loving myself. And I used to have to say every single day, I am a precious child of God. I'm a precious child of God. And every time I came to the mirror, I had to say that to myself until I believed that I was a
That you
precious
are a
child of
precious
God.
child of God.
I
Okay.
am a precious child of God. So I do the same thing with guilt and anger. I have to kind of tell myself, you need to apologize, or you need to get on with this. And I say it over in my head enough times to where I act on what I'm saying. That helps me to move forward when I'm stuck in the anger or the guilt.
Okay. Give me a second. There was somewhere where I read about the three levels of forgiveness, and I found that very interesting. I am sorry if my screen went blank. Did it go blank?
Who, me?
No, did my screen go blank just
Oh,
now?
no.
Okay, you can still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to just, and I think we're just 20 minutes past, so I think I'll just read this with you and then we just have a quick chat about it and then I think we can wrap up. So I read somewhere that there are three levels of forgiveness. Level one being a willingness to not try any, even the score.
Mm-hmm.
Level two is a willingness to let go of bitterness and hatred.
Mm-hmm.
Level three is a willingness to be reconciled with the person who hurt you.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
thoughts?
Um, I think those are all true. We go, it's like kind of like the process I was talking about earlier. We kind of
Yeah.
go through each of those phases until we get to a place where we can actually forgive the person and mean it in our heart. It comes from our heart. It's not a, oh, I'll show you, I'll get you back or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. So I think as little kids, and some of us just haven't grown up. Some of us have the willingness to not even try to forgive the other person, and even the score. You know, you hurt me, I hurt you back,
Right.
and then it comes to a point where you're okay in a space to kind of let go of the bitterness and the hatred, the anger, that seeking of revenge or whatever you want to call it. And then comes the point where you are okay to reconcile with the person who hurt you. Looking at all of this, I loved what you said about you come to a point of forgiveness when you are overwhelmed with guilt, when you've come with so much of guilt has come up on you that you feel like, okay, I need to do something about this, and it's
Right.
often an apology.
Yes.
Super. um,
I have a
Brilliant.
quote here. I have a
Yes.
quote here from, I just thought it was tied in with what we were talking about today. It says, acceptance and tolerance and forgiveness. Those are life altering lessons. That
Oh
was written by
yes.
Jessica Lange.
Wow. So
That's pretty
true.
powerful. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Acceptance and tolerance. Yep. 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 Yep.
Yep. All
And
three
I
of them.
true. And I think when you accept the other person as they are, also yourself as you are, and then when you also are tolerant, because you need to tolerate differences and
Right.
similarities, and then forgiveness. So true. So true. I like that. Okay, so we have Iman watching us, and we have the water shines only by the sun, and it's you both who are in our RK group. Sun, okay, someone complimenting the two of us. Thank you. And
Oh,
then we have Rahil who says self respect comes in between at times when thinking of forgiveness. And we have Ruhi who says hi, and Iman who's given us a thumbs up. So awesome, wonderful session. Keep inspiring. Super. So,
thank you.
Cindy, any comments as we wrap this up?
Just a great topic. I think a lot of people struggle with forgiveness, forgiving themselves, forgiving others. And so it's a great topic to talk about and to keep talking about in your relationships with other people because it's an important lesson to learn.
True, true. And I love the quote that you pulled out for us this today about acceptance, forgiveness, and tolerance.
Comments.
Uh, yes, tolerance. Yes, that's a good one. I might take it up on one of the next
Your
following Wise
topics.
Wednesdays. The next one coming up next week is on happiness, and I have a lovely lady all the way in Amsterdam, in Netherlands, Amsterdam, yes, who will be joining in. She is Lubna, and she does amazing stuff. She has a book that she's written, and lots of elements to her. And we will be speaking about happiness next week. So a big thank
Awesome.
you to everyone who has joined in, and thank you, Cindy, for taking out the time. And you've been amazing. I've always loved, adored, and welcomed your perspectives, your thoughts, our synchronicity. So thank you
Yes.
so much for being the first guest speaker on board.
Thank you very much for asking me and for having me. I enjoyed it.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye, everybody. any comments, just leave them in, and let's see how far we can take this conversation. All right, then. Good night for now.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye, everyone.